Hello, everyone. Welcome to another YHB TV with Academy of Handmade, your Handmade Business Television, a weekly series dedicated to helping you navigate all things maker life. Hashtag maker life. I am the co-director of Academy of Handmade along with Isaac Watson here. Academy of Handmade. Yes. Academy of Handmade is a supportive community for makers, and we try to help you guys with your business, support you in any way that we can, and yeah, that's kind of what we're about here. Each week we tackle a topic that we think gets deeper into what's really going on in your business, trying to probe it just a little bit more. So we're excited this week to be talking about if your current customer is actually your target customer. But before we dive into that, this episode of YHB TV is brought to you by Jumpstart Your Handmade Business. Isaac and I have met thousands of makers over the years, and we noticed that there tends to be one major thing that makes it hard to make progress, which is getting clarity and defining your roadmap to success. Our self-guided Jumpstart program helps you understand the big picture of your business by setting goals, knowing your numbers, and honing in on the right resources for the right solutions. You can learn more at academyofhandmade.com/jumpstart or by clicking the link, the button below that will take you to that page. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, how are you, Sharon?
Good. We have finally had air conditioning installed in our place, so I feel like it's a whole new world. It's one of those wall ones that's at the top and blows down, and it's so quiet and amazingly cold, and it's very exciting here in the middle of summer. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
the heat finally broke for you, just like it did up here in the Northwest, right?
It broke, but it's definitely inching back. Mm-hmm. It broke, it got really hot, and then it slowly climbed down, and then we had some marine layer and had some like cooler nights and stuff, and then it's definitely sunny and inching its way back up to 100 degrees next week. So
we're going to be up in the 90s next week.
It's not good, Isaac. It's not good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the sun, but
I do too.
When it's just like that on end, like it just
oppressive.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard. So awesome. Well, yeah. How are you doing? You have exciting news. You have a new baby in your life.
We got a new car. All I want to do is drive it. But yeah, it's good.
Yay. All right. So, well, welcome everyone. We see that people are starting to come in. If you missed last week, I'm going to just say, I feel like we gave a lot of this week away last week. We still have stuff to cover today, but we went pretty in deep on talking about niches last week and target customer stuff. So if you missed last week, make sure to go back. Up at the top where it says schedule and it says session 2 of 3, well, you want to go to session 1 of 3 to watch that. But don't do it right now because then it will take you off this page and you're going to get confused trying to come back here. So just do that after this.
Yeah. But it was good. And to be honest, the two topics fit really closely together. Last week we were talking about finding your niche. And of course, through that process, we started talking about your customers and how your niche relates to your target customer. But today we want to talk a little bit more about trying to figure out if your current customer actually is your target customer. That can be something that a lot of makers encounter, especially as they start out. Maybe the people that start buying from them aren't quite the people that they realize that they want to be marketing to or want to be selling to. And so we came up with some thoughts about why that might be and what maybe you can do about it.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons why a lot of times when you're starting out, your target customer your current customer might not be your target customer is because you've priced things in a certain way to still attract people that are just there for the bargain, or they're there because they're like, oh, they're just collecting things, I guess. They're like collecting nice things, and they're not really somebody who's going to become like a passionate fan about your stuff. So, but you will know even more if somebody buys your stuff and complains about the price. They are probably not your target customer. I'm going to guess in like 99% of these situations, if you have people who buy your stuff and still complain about the price, that it's worth listening to a little, but it's probably not the people that you're going to want to care about in the long run. And that's because most makers are usually priced either pretty appropriately to sometimes undervaluing themselves. So if someone's complaining about the price, like they're never going to grow with you at some point. Now, there's probably some 1% of people out there that have priced things in a bananas way because they've just like overvalued their stuff. Like they're maybe like too personalizing it or something like that. And so they've like priced it really crazy high. I don't feel like that's something we see often, Isaac.
No, it's pretty rare. And I do think, you know, in some cases, like the big, huge grain of salt you should be taking is that, you know, these people may not be understanding your value or perceiving the value appropriately. But the other little part of that is, that you could use and that might inform your pricing in particular, is where that falls within the market and how people respond to it that way. So you have to do a little discernment there, but the vast majority of the time, complaints about price from people who are still buying your product are likely an indication that that's not your actual target customer.
Yeah, and it's going to be because they're not going to be able to grow with you. You know, they're always going to be hassling you about this. They're wanting more of a bargain, and you're just never really going to be able to give it to them. If you're wondering about price and figuring that out, one of the things we do is we have a competitive analysis in the Jumpstart program. And I think that's one of the things that helps you understand sort of where you're at and where competitors are at, and like helps you to understand how often priced you might be sometimes, and how you'll see like the rest of the market is over here and you're just like over here really cheap sometimes. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so another reason or another thing that you might hear from people, especially if you're at markets and fairs and craft shows, and I know this is so true in Portland because some might argue it's the DIY capital of the world, but you might get a lot of comments, oh, I can make that myself, or I could do that, or you could do that, saying to their friend. Those are probably not your target customer. Those are the type of people that are just looking for creative inspiration for their own projects, or they completely misunderstand what it takes to put the effort into making that work. I used to get this all the time with my jewelry business. Oh, I could do that. Oh, that looks easy. You can't, like, have you ever tried dismantling a camera lens? Pain in the ass, especially a 30-year-old one where all the screws are seized up. Anyway, I got that comment a lot from people, and I know that a lot of makers do. And I think that's the first indication to me that like this is not the type of person that I want to market to. I'm trying to market to the person that's like, oh, that's so cool. I know the perfect person that would be a good gift for. Or, oh, I love that. I want to try it on. Like those are the kinds of responses you want, not the, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, totally. Another point is if you are not getting a lot of repeat business from people, those people, even though they have bought from you, are probably not your target customer. Now, there are always going to be people who are still kind of your target customer that are just buying for gifts, right? And you want to like have them sort of in an understanding of where they fall on your business. But those people are never going to be the core raving fans of your business, right? So you want to acknowledge their presence and understand that they're there. I mean, they might also just not be repeating from your business because they're just not in your product, or they just bought it as a novelty. That's it too. But if you don't see a lot of repeat business, you might start to wonder what's going on there. Now, some products don't really lend themselves to a lot of repeat business. If you are selling, you know, $200 tables or something, it can be difficult to suss that out. But, you know, if you're selling candles or, I don't know, help me out here, Isaac.
Stationery or...
Yeah. Obviously...
Classes. I'm just looking in the chat at who's in here.
I mean, obviously, if it's a consumable, then yes, definitely even more. You should be seeing a repeat customer. But if you're, you know, even if you're selling, you know, macrame or tea towels or something like that, you still want to have like a good amount of people in there that are like, okay, you've made something else different. I'm into that too. You know, you want somebody that's going to keep following your business and support it forever, which is another reason why it's good to have a product line that always sort of has new things. So those people can come back, whether even if it's just releasing, you know, a different version of something you already have, or like adding a new category. So. For
sure. Okay. Another thing that you might consider is if you are looking at the people who buy from you in person, because it's usually the easiest way to do this. So you're looking at the people who buy from you in person, and you can't seem to detect any pattern that ties all those people together. Yeah. All over the map, no common demographics, no common interests, or at least no apparent common interests, or lifestyle choices or clothing, whatever. If you can't draw any lines between the different customers who are buying from you, then that might be an indication that either you haven't developed enough of a niche in your product, or you offer products that are spread across too many interests, or too many interest groups. And that can make it really hard to hone in on who your actual target customer is, because if you keep selling like that, you end up trying to market to everybody and spread yourself too thin.
Yes, definitely. And it can sometimes take a little bit of time to discern those patterns. So obviously, like, don't just be like, I don't see any discernible patterns. But, you know, if you've been to enough, you know, a few markets, and you're kind of not seeing easily identifying like, oh, I see my target customer walking in right now. You kind of might not really have a good target customer at the moment. So, and then is it just all about you and branding and making it something where people who love you are going to be like, yes, I'm into this. I'm coming for this. You know, tell me how much it is within reason, and I'll buy it. But yeah, that's all related back to branding. If your sales are up and you keep growing, you know, but you seem to never have satisfied customers, that might also be a reflection on either your product or that you really haven't gone after the right person. Because the right person will be really satisfied with your product and won't have a lot of complaints. Now, you're always going to have a small part of your audience that's just going to be complainers. And especially if you're on Etsy, I think that is where you will see a lot of complainers. I'm not sure how Amazon is too, but I'm guessing there's probably, you know, some amount of Amazon too, right? These places are marketplaces. They're not there for you. They're kind of just there to, you know, transactional situations usually. So yes, there's always going to be somebody who's going to have complaints. But if you're noticing that there is a lot of people complaining, consistently, like you might want to start to re-examine, like, hey, maybe I should move away from whatever it is that's attracting these people to me and find somebody else to attract that's better.
Exactly. I'm trying to think if I have anything to add to that. I don't think I do.
I was going to say, if you're feeling frustrated with this, we did a blog post a couple years ago on what if you hate your customer. And so we're going to post that in the chat so you guys can read that if you're interested in it as well, too.
Sure. Okay, so the last thing that was on our list of things we didn't cover last week is if you get into a situation where you don't feel like your customers are like clamoring for more, like they're not begging you for more stuff, or they're not actively recommending you or advocating for you or referring their friends to you, they're just not rabid fans.
They're not posting on social media about you.
Yeah,
and not everyone's customer base is going to be big social media users, but like if that's your kind of customer, then yes, you should definitely wonder.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think that kind of goes with what Sharon was saying before about customers never seeming satisfied, is just that, you want to develop a customer base that does spread the word. Word of mouth is still, it will remain the best way to market your business, the most authentic, the most honest way to market your business that you ever can. And it's really hard to encourage people to do that. But when they do, that's gold. And if they're not doing that consistently, then that might be an indication to you that either the customers you have are not your ideal customer, or there's something that is blocking them from doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, those were just the points that we had, because I think obviously the whole discussion of finding your target customer is one that's difficult. It's one that I feel like a lot of coaches attempt to really like help people with, but I kind of just think like there's a baseline of knowledge of understanding how to figure out your target customer, and then just like science experimenting, trial and error to kind of be like, okay, is this it? Oh, no. All right. And you're kind of like, always resetting the hypothesis until you kind of have it. And then who knows, maybe then that shifts even as your company shifts in a few years. It happens sometimes. So it's something that's always worth revisiting.
Absolutely. So does anybody have any questions? If you do, quickly click on that Ask a Question button below the video and pop it in there, because we'd love to make sure we're answering questions if you have any. But I think overall, this notion of finding your niche and figuring out if the customer you have is the customer you want, that's it's not something you can just do once. It's an ongoing thing. We talked about this last week. Sharon just mentioned it, the whole hypothesis notion, the fact that you are constantly testing and proving against this hypothesis about who it is that's going to buy from you, and tweaking it as things go. Your products are going to change over time. Your business is going to change as it grows or as it evolves, or as it scales back. However that fits within the handmade business that you're building for yourself, things are going to shift and change. And so keeping these questions top of mind as you go through it is going to be really important, because you always want to make sure that you are going after the right people for your product, and knowing who that is, and knowing who your product serves and what it does for them. And that's going to put you a leg up over everything else that you do, is having that confidence in knowing what you're selling, why, and who wants to buy it.
Yeah. Amanda says, an important thing I learned when figuring out my target customer was whether I liked working with them, and also can they afford my product. It's a nice little Venn diagram. Yes. I mean, if you don't like your customer, sometimes you can change that, sometimes it is just the nature that sometimes we send out a product into the world and a brand that a certain kind of person winds up being attracted to that we didn't realize we were going to attract. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize this is the person. So, but I think that all of the way to change that, if it's somebody that if you have a wide enough, if there's a wide enough market for the product anyways, you can sort of pivot a little so that that person that is annoying you isn't coming to your booth anymore, I guess, or coming to your shop anymore. Excuse me.
I think that there's thinking about the Venn diagrams is really important. Like, there are plenty of people that you could enjoy working with, and there are plenty of people that can afford your product, but you really need to find the blend between the two, because just because you enjoy working with somebody doesn't mean that they are going to end up being a happy customer, because if they can't afford it, then that's a problem. And just because someone has a ton of money to blow on custom drinkware doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be enjoyable to work with. They could be absolutely crazy. And that's no fun for your creative process, right? That constrains it. So I think that's really great. CS says, I've also found when I increased my prices, my true target customer would stay with me and still buy, whereas those who want a bargain go away. And that is exactly what we were getting at with the complaints about price. The ones who don't understand the value you're offering are the ones who are going to go away or possibly voice a complaint about your price if you raise your prices. But the people who appreciate you and your work and the process and are really there, those are the ones who are going to stick around, and that's customer gold.
And I would say that you should also pay attention to, there is just some customers who will spend money, but they also like to feel like they got a good deal. And they kind of still do like the, going after a sale or things like that. Sometimes I feel like there's a very particular kind of woman that's interested in that too. So don't necessarily think that means, just because somebody is excited about a sale or something with you, or like, whatever it is, there's ways of still being, higher end, high margins, having that higher price and being the right price. But still, I think of a lot of like shoes in particular, but I'm sure there's a relatable maker situation as well too. For
sure.
Amanda, did we go to what Amanda said about the custom work?
I didn't go there.
She said, I realized that a lot of the custom work I completely hate doing, so I figured out what it was about my previous line that was attracting those people. Totally. And custom work is especially one where if your customer is bothering you, you got to fix that. You got to figure out what's going on there, because there's some stuff where it's like, okay, my customer is kind of annoying. I can deal with that. Like, you just kind of know maybe you have this particular customer that might not be your favorite that's attracted to you. But that still doesn't mean, you have to like push them away. But yes, if you're doing custom work, that's a lot of like back and forth. And that will just emotionally drain you if you're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. CS also said that a friend has a shop who sells jewelry at a mid-range. An Etsy competitor sells the exact same type of jewelry and charges twice as much. It's all about the target and perceived value. That is very, very true. And that's influenced by your branding. It's influenced by the way you talk about the work. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And we definitely want you to make sure you're maximizing your perceived value and cultivating the types of customers that do get that and are willing to pay the right price for it.
Yep. And some people make a calculation that they're going to maybe serve a wider market, sell more products at this lower price. And then some people have decided, I only want to deal with this high-end thing. I'm going to pay more for branding. I don't think that either of those two things are necessarily wrong, but it's more about having the conscious choice of figuring out what you want to be and what you want your line to be, because there's so much flexibility and breadth and width in terms of, you know, where you can go with a product. Be that through materials, through, you know, aesthetics and branding, through packaging, just through where you advertise and sell. All of those things can translate and completely change who your target customer winds up being. So
yeah. All right. I think that covers it, right?
Yeah. Next week. What are we doing next week, Isaac?
Next week, we're going to take a little shift in gears and talk about honing in on productivity.
Which I feel like in the summer is a good time to talk about productivity, because it kind of goes all over the place, I think. Sometimes some people can get really productive. Mm-hmm. I feel like other times you can become a little bit more relaxed and distracted. And then you're like, oh, dang, the holidays are coming real quick.
It's true. So we're going to talk about some tips and some tools and some other fun things that can help you hone in on that productivity, both right now during those summer months and into the crazy holiday season, which is right around the corner. And I'm sorry if that gives you anxiety, but it's true.
Indeed. All right. Well, we hope you guys will see us next week. Until then, any questions you guys have, make sure to post them in our Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, make sure to get in there. It's your handmade business with Academy of Handmade. And so we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.